Chapter 13-17 Plead Guilty. 1. The Eternal Emperor looked grimly at Mo Yunxian and the others kneeling before him. Greetings, Emperor. Mo and the others sensed the atmosphere and hurriedly kowtowed. Mo Yunxian saw that Ling Yan did not seem to notice her, but Mo signaled to her secretly, and she obediently bowed to the Emperor. You are really daring to leave the Board of Punishments on your own accord, without my permission. The Eternal Emperor's tone was filled with displeasure. Mo and the others immediately broke into a cold sweat. When he and Mo Yunxian were imprisoned in the Board of Punishments, they had discovered that Wu Yang and the others were also jailed there. They had mostly been arrested within the past couple of days for crimes they had committed. Before Mo could ask them for details, Mo Yunxian used her status and brought them out of the Board of Punishments in a daze. Wu Yang and the others were rather worried at first, but they felt that the incidents were rather strange and wanted to come out early to investigate, so they had left. But after a few days outside, they had yet to discover a single clue. Your Majesty, please have mercy. We know we were in the wrong. When the Eternal Emperor summoned them to the morning court session, they all knew something was terribly wrong. Mo Yunxian, who gave you the authority to leave and bring criminals with you? The Eternal Emperor's gaze suddenly fell on Mo Yunxian. Although Mo Yunxian was the daughter of a general, she did not have such authority. Mo Yunxian turned pale, but she steeled herself and said, Your Majesty, I had my reasons for leaving. What reasons? The incident that happened that day was very strange. I felt that something was amiss, so I left the Board of Punishments to investigate. Mo Yunxian did not feel that there was anything wrong with her way of thinking. She thought it was very strange that those three people had suddenly appeared and then died. So what did you find out? The Eternal Emperor asked as his expression changed. Mo Yunxian opened her mouth, then pouted, and shook her head. The Eternal Emperor laughed coldly. Mo Yunxian, you behaved rudely and recklessly at the banquet, but I forgave you for the sake of your father. Yet you have remained recalcitrant. Do you really think you can get away with such lawless behavior? You are not needed to investigate such matters. Do you think that everyone in the Board of Punishments is dead? The Eternal Emperor bellowed as he showed his rage. Mo Yunxian and the others were terrified. The Eternal Emperor could not be bothered with Mo Yunxian and the others. He turned to look at Ling Yan. Ling Yan, you have heard everything said today. What explanation can you give? At that moment, everyone's gaze focused on Ling Yan. Today, he had been charged with 2 major crimes. If he was guilty, he would probably lose his position as part of the royal family, not to mention his status as crown prince. The eldest prince was in a good mood. He was waiting to see Ling Yan fall from power. Although the matter of appropriating disaster relief funds was not watertight because of time constraints and Ling Yan might be able to find a loophole, the trouble that Ling Yan's trusted subordinates had stirred up would be impossible to resolve. The eldest prince and second princess had put in a lot of effort into trapping Mo and the others. Even if the Eternal Emperor was suspicious and investigated the status of the deceased, he would not be able to find anything amiss. Also, Mo Yunxian had been a great help when she had taken it upon herself to bring everyone out of the Board of Punishments. Just that incident alone would shake Ling Yan's position as crown prince, which was still unstable. Chapter 13-18 Plead Guilty. 2. The eldest prince and Yi Qingtang secretly exchanged glances and waited to see how Ling Yan would redeem himself. Yi Qingtang was aware that of the 2 charges, the one of indulging one's subordinates had been planned more rigorously. The disaster relief matter was just the icing on the cake. She just did not know how Ling Yan would deal with it. Yi Qingtang's gaze involuntarily fell on Ling Yan. Ling Yan maintained his composure although everyone was looking at him. He only raised his eyes slightly to look at the Eternal Emperor. Just as everyone was staring at Ling Yan to see how he would refute the charges, he suddenly spoke. Lord Hu has asked to impeach me on the grounds of 2 charges. I plead guilty to them both. Ling Yan's words shocked everyone present. What's going on? Ling Yan, is pleading guilty just like that? The eldest princess whispered to the eldest prince behind her, her eyes wide in disbelief. Ling Yan did not say a word to refute Lord Hu's 2 charges but simply admitted that he was guilty. No one present had expected this, much less the eldest princess. Yi Qingtang was also shocked by Ling Yan's words. He is just pleading guilty. You should at least resist a little. A look of shock flashed across the Eternal Emperor's eyes as he looked at Ling Yan, who had pleaded guilty. Ling Yan, are you really pleading guilty? The Eternal Emperor asked somewhat uncertainly. Yes, I am pleading guilty. Ling Yan repeated himself as if afraid that the others had not heard him. Now, the Eternal Emperor really turned ashen. He had been planning to rebuke Ling Yan. If he refuted the charges, the Emperor would naturally get someone to investigate everything carefully. He certainly would not believe Lord Hu's accusations so easily. However, the person being charged did not have any intention of resisting. The Eternal Emperor had just formulated a series of follow-up actions, but now, they were rendered useless. Even Lord Hu, who had come forward to accuse Ling Yan, was shocked. Had the almost demonically clever third prince been substituted for someone else? As everyone was exclaiming in surprise, Ling Yan suddenly took a few dossiers from his sleeve and handed them to the Eternal Emperor. Then, he flicked his robes and kneeled on one knee. Royal Father, every word that Lord Hu said is the truth. However, Lord Hu's investigations were too superficial. These dossiers clearly record all the funds that were misappropriated in the disaster relief work that I was involved in over the past few years. Ling Yan's words shocked everyone present. Did anyone trip themselves up like that? The Eternal Emperor scowled and flipped through the dossiers. The dossiers clearly recorded every sum that had gone missing, and it was significantly greater than that in Lord Hu's accounts. But as he read further, the Eternal Emperor's expression grew even more shocked. The eldest prince, who was standing nearby, also snapped out of his trance. Although he did not know what was wrong with Ling Yan today, he certainly would not miss this golden opportunity. He would take advantage of Ling Yan's weakness to score a vital hit. The eldest prince advanced. Royal Father, the Crown Prince is young, and perhaps he made a mistake. Please, Royal Father, forgive him. The second princess immediately understood and said, Forgive him? My eldest royal brother is so compassionate. The Crown Prince has appropriated the funds meant to save the lives of our citizens at the border. Do you know that every cent he embezzled represents the life of a citizen, stricken by the disaster? Who knows how many citizens have been killed by his greed? How can such a greedy person be our dynasty's crown prince? How can we face our citizens? When Ling Yan saw that the men had been captured, he said, Royal Father, when you sent me to the border to perform disaster relief, Mang Yi and the others were sent to accompany me. Along the way, I fell ill and was unable to continue. I had no choice but to order Mang Yi and the others to bring the funds there first. However, they were corrupt and appropriated most of the funds. By the time I found out about it, they had appropriated the funds. The border citizens were in a desperate plight. Since I was there as my royal father's representative, I did not dare to delay the work. Thus, I sold my own property to make up the sum. As Ling Yan spoke, he nodded to an old minister present in the court. The old minister immediately advanced and kneeled before the Eternal Emperor. Chapter 1320 Justice Before Family 1. This old minister used to be the Eternal Emperor's trusted subordinate. He was upright, honest, and absolutely loyal. The Eternal Emperor trusted him implicitly. The Crown Prince is speaking the truth. Because of the losses caused by the natural disaster, the situation at the border was desperate. The Crown Prince sought my help as I was situated near the border, and he asked me to raise funds for him. He later pawned his jewels to repay me. The old minister's words took everyone by surprise. This old minister was staunchly upright and would never curry favor from those in power. In the past, He had even dared to point out the Eternal Emperor's mistakes. Hence, the Eternal Emperor trusted him greatly. The eldest prince and second princess had tried to get him over to their side but were always shown the door. One might say that all the important ministers in the court trusted the old minister's word. As he spoke, the old minister produced the loan receipts that he and Ling Yan had signed that year and presented them to the Eternal Emperor. The documents had been imbued with a spell that showed when they were signed. There was no way to tamper with them. The Eternal Emperor looked through them one by one and noticed that the time stated in the spell coincided with the disaster a few years ago. The evidence was irrefutable. No one had expected Ling Yan to be prepared with this. That year, there had been nothing unusual about Ling Yan's disaster relief work. The people that the eldest prince had found and the evidence of embezzlement were all falsified. They had not realized that the embezzlement had really taken place. Except that the embezzler was not Ling Yan but Mang Yi and the others. In fact, Ling Yan had pawned his own belongings in order to make up the sum. Many of the ministers in the court had been unhappy over Ling Yan appropriating the disaster relief funds. When they heard this, they now turned their approving looks on Ling Yan. We never knew that the crown prince had done so much for our country and our people. We admire him deeply. The Eternal Emperor looked at Ling Yan with a much friendlier gaze. His eyes were filled with concern. Yener, why didn't you say something when this happened? Ling Yan replied. That year, the Central Dynasty was about to make trouble. General Mo had led troops to guard the border. I was afraid that revealing the matter then would affect the line of defense at the border. The Eternal Emperor looked pleased. The eldest prince and second princess were bewildered. They had plotted against Ling Yan, but now, they had not only failed unexpectedly, but Ling Yan had used their accusation to consolidate his position. He had even used his own money to make up the disaster relief funds and had remained quiet about it for many years without seeking any praise. In fact, no one would have known about it, if they had not given Ling Yan a good opportunity today. The eldest prince and second princess exchanged glances. Their expressions were a little anxious. Bring them away and interrogate them under torture. The Eternal Emperor's expression changed from kindly to chilly as he turned from Ling Yan to look at Mang Yi and the others. They were quickly brought away. Mo Yunxian, who was standing nearby, was stunned. Mang Yi and the others were her father's trusted subordinates. Mo Yunxian had been completely ignorant about the matter of the disaster relief funds. The eldest prince could not help but panic when he saw that Ling Yan had countered his move. But when he saw Mo Yunxian and the others kneeling in the hall, he thought of another plan. So he went forward and said, "The crown prince has worked hard for the people but is too soft-hearted. This might not be a good thing. Such matters should have been reported to our royal father in the first instance. You should not have hidden the matter on account of your engagement with Mo Yunxian. Mang Yi and the others are General Mo's trusted subordinates. General Mo must be behind the embezzlement." Chapter 1321 Justice Before Family 2. When the eldest prince saw that the disaster relief trap had failed, he used the statuses of Mang Yi and the others to accuse General Mo. After all, everyone knew about Ling Yan and Mo Yunxian's engagement. When the second princess heard this, she also recovered her wits and said with a smile, "Did the crown prince not expose Mang Yi and the others because of his concerns about the Central Dynasty, or because they are General Mo's trusted subordinates? No one can say for sure. After all, General Mo is one of the crown prince's staunchest supporters. The crown prince only spoke up after the disaster relief matter was exposed. I wonder if he did so to protect himself." Yi Qingtang sighed softly as she heard the siblings work together seamlessly. These two were not utterly stupid. They knew how to capitalize on the relationship between Ling Yan and the Mo family. But she was rather curious as to what Ling Yan would say this time. "What my second royal sister says makes sense. For some time now, General Mo has grown arrogant with his achievements. Even his daughter, Mo Yunxian, dared to make a scene in the Board of Punishments. She has no regard for heaven or the throne. I suppose General Mo also has his ambitions. Since the Crown Prince discovered this earlier, why didn't he speak up? The eldest princess also chipped in. When Mo Yunxian saw her father being maligned, she said, "Don't you malign my father and elder brother Yan. My father has always been loyal and has never disobeyed his majesty. What Meng Yi and the others did has nothing to do with my father. Elder brother Yan, speak. Hasn't my father always acted appropriately towards his majesty?" Mo Yunxian asked Ling Yan urgently. Ling Yan did not look at Mo Yunxian but looked directly at the Eternal Emperor and said, "Royal Father, I am guilty." The Eternal Emperor frowned slightly. He did not know why Ling Yan said he was guilty. Ling Yan continued. "I discovered General Mo's disloyalty long ago, but I did not speak because I had yet to gather sufficient evidence. Fortunately, I gathered sufficient evidence a few days ago, and I will now show it to my royal father." As he spoke, Ling Yan took a few memorials from his space ring and presented them to the Eternal Emperor. These memorials clearly recorded all the crimes that General Mo had committed. "I am engaged to the Mo family, but I have never forgotten my own position," Ling Yan said. The entire court exploded into whispers. For the past few years, General Mo's behavior had become increasingly out of hand as his achievements on the battlefield grew. Many of the officials in the court were unhappy with this, but they did not dare to speak out because of the engagement between the Mo family and Ling Yan and because of General Mo's influence. Everyone knew about the engagement between the Mo family and Ling Yan. Chapter 13:22 Justice before family 3. Even 10 eldest princes were no match for Ling Yan. Ling Yan was probably all prepared and had clearly expected everything that happened today. It must be admitted that Yi Qingtang wanted to laugh when she saw Mo Yunxian's crushed look. No one had expected Ling Yan to accuse General Mo. Even Mo Yu and the others were implicated because they were close to Mo Yunxian. Wu Liang and the others were Ling Yan's trusted subordinates, but because of their connection with Mo Yu and the Mo family, they were close to the Mo family, and now, they were unable to extricate themselves. Also, Mo Yunxian had led them away after they had committed the crimes. From start to finish, Ling Yan had not involved himself in the matter. This deepened the impression that they had transferred their loyalties to the Mo family and that the trouble they had caused had nothing to do with Ling Yan. Instead, it cast the spotlight on Mo Yunxian's presumptuousness and the Mo family's arrogance in its achievements. Imprison Mo Yunxian and the others. The Eternal Emperor took a deep breath and resolutely issued the command. He also sent men with troops to arrest General Mo, who had just returned to the capital. Elder brother Yan. Elder brother Yan, Mo Yunxian frantically sought Ling Yan's help before she was dragged away, her beautiful little face filled with terror. But Ling Yan had not even glanced at her throughout this incident. Mo Yunxian had not imagined that Ling Yan would treat her so viciously. When Mo Yunxian and the others had been taken away and imprisoned, Ling Yan said, "Royal Father, I am guilty. Although I did not participate in the Mo family's matters, Mo Yunxian and I are engaged." Before Ling Yan could finish speaking, the Eternal Emperor waved his arm. "This engagement is my fault. I made the engagement for you years ago but did not expect the Mo family to harbor such wicked ambitions. I have picked the right person. You have taken on everything by yourself and have given priority to national matters without showing any bias. You have done very well in this matter. Your engagement with Mo Yunxian is dissolved. In the future, the two of you have no connection whatsoever. You need not worry about this." The Eternal Emperor looked pleased. Ling Yan had managed this matter flawlessly. He was even more pleased that Ling Yan had chosen justice over family for the sake of the nation. This is the kind of boldness and courage a crown prince of our eternal dynasty should display. The Eternal Emperor was full of praise, unaware that the eldest prince's and second prince's expressions had darkened. Their careful plans had been completely overturned by Ling Yan. Unexpectedly, Not only had they failed to trap Ling Yan, but their actions caused Ling Yan to appear even more virtuous in the eyes of the Eternal Emperor and the ministers. Ling Yan's status as the crown prince had been shaky, but after this incident, the entire court and the Eternal Emperor would recognize Ling Yan's status as the crown prince. The three of them finally had a taste of what it meant to try to gain an advantage and end up worse off. "You must be tired. Go back and rest," the Eternal Emperor said with a smile. Today, the more he looked at Ling Yan, the more delighted he grew. Ling Yan smiled and rose. "Then I will take my leave." As he spoke, Ling Yan turned to leave. When he walked past Yi Qingtang, his footsteps seemed to pause. Yi Qingtang pretended not to notice. She hid behind her whiskers and pretended to be entirely absorbed elsewhere. Ling Yan's lips curved in a faint smile. A moment later, he strode away. Ling Yan had won a complete victory in today's battle. Chapter 1323 had a lot of fun. After Ling Yan left, all the ministers praised Ling Yan profusely and expressed their approval of him. Ling Yan's reputation in the court instantly grew. The eldest prince's, second princess, and the eldest princess expressions were utterly ugly. The border officials and disaster victims they had brought aroused the minister's suspicions instead, and they were taken away for questioning. After all, the receipts that Ling Yan had signed were present, causing their version of events to be viewed suspiciously. When they saw this, the eldest prince's and second princess' hearts thumped wildly. Fortunately, they had neither made a personal appearance nor revealed their identity when contacting these people. Even if these people revealed who had instructed them, it could not be traced back to the eldest prince and second princess. After the court dismissed, the eldest prince and the others returned to his residence. The three siblings had ugly expressions, completely unlike their expressions when they had left the residence earlier. "We were defeated by Ling Yan today." The second princess sat down, her face filled with frustration. "I did not expect what we did today would help Ling Yan instead. He not only resolved all the accusations, but he even seized the opportunity to gain everyone's approval. We have really made a huge loss today." The eldest prince's face was ashen. He had been confident of victory, but to their surprise, they had lost the entire round. Ling Yan's move had been so excellent that they were unable to guard against it. Ling Yan even accused the Mo family as well. That was really unexpected. Doesn't he know that the Mo family is his greatest source of support? The eldest prince's brows were deeply furrowed. She was perplexed by Ling Yan's accusation of the Mo family. One must know that the Mo family had always supported Ling Yan. Although the Mo family could not compare to the sacred ground of reflection or the Temple of Shadows, it held the military power in the Eternal Dynasty. It wielded great influence in the imperial court, and that was one of the reasons they had not been able to get at Ling Yan so far. But today, Ling Yan had actually accused the Mo family without batting an eye. After today, the Mo family would soon fall from power. This could not be good news for Ling Yan. "Our move was lacking," the eldest prince sighed, then lifted his eyes, and glanced at Yi Qingtang. "Elder Yi, we were not properly prepared today and wasted your scheme." They thought that Yi Qingtang's plan was sure to work, but they had miscalculated Ling Yan's movements and wasted the opportunity. "It doesn't matter." Yi Qingtang spoke casually, but she could not help but inwardly roll her eyes. Not properly prepared. What she saw today gave her an inkling of how this would play out. Chapter 1324 had a lot of fun too. He had already accused the Mo family, but they still wanted to involve Ling Yan in the Mo family scandal. How awkward would that be? If we say that it's infighting, the eldest princess was desperate. Do you think that Ling Yan will be unable to think of that? Yi Qingtang said patiently. The eldest princess lost all ideas while the eldest prince and second princess were filled with frustration. "It's late. Elder Yi, you must be worn out already. Do head back to rest first. We will monitor the situation," said the eldest prince. Yi Qingtang, who was more than eager to stay away from these fools, immediately rose and left. Lady Ghost followed silently. Holy Lord, it must be difficult for you to trouble yourself over the eldest prince's matter, Lady Ghost said softly. They're seriously a group of fools. Yi Qingtang responded plainly in the demeanor of a holy lord as a hint of annoyance emerged in her eyes. Although Lady Ghost was not at the scene, she more or less knew what happened from the eldest prince's recount and was rather impressed with Ling Yan's intelligence. You've worked hard, holy lord. Do rest early. Yi Qingtang returned to her room without uttering a word. Once Yi Qingtang left, a tiny figure appeared at the corner of the long corridor near them. Lady Ghost immediately kneeled on a knee upon noticing that figure. Greetings, Holy Son Ming Wang. Ming Wang slowly walked out from the shadows, though his eyes were fixated in the direction where Yi Qingtang left. His pitch-dark orbs narrowed slightly, and no one could guess his current thoughts. Unbeknown to Ming Gu and Yi Qingtang, Ming Wang headed here this morning. Holy Lord did not have any strange behavior on this trip. Lady Ghost reported honestly. She had been observing Yi Qingtang's actions silently on this trip and did not find anything suspicious. Even when Yi Qingtang was helping the eldest prince and the rest to come up with a plan, her intelligence did not raise any doubts to Lady Ghost. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes, but his stern expression remained. Lady Ghost's words did not eliminate his suspicions. Of course, Lady Ghost was also aware that if someone was set on impersonating the Holy Lord of Shadows, she would not easily give the game away. Meanwhile, the moment Yi Qingtang returned to her room, she washed off the disguise on her face, changed her clothes, and laid on the bed. Previously, she and Ling Yan were fighting on the same line, and Ling Yan always helped her to emerge safely out of danger. Yi Qingtang already knew that Ling Yan was wise back then, but she only realized how insane his level of intelligence was now that they were on opposing sides. He could actually predict today's events a few years ago. This fellow can't be a god, can he? Yi Qingtang furrowed her brows, but it was evident that Ling Yan made preparations for the disaster relief a few years ago. She had a recurring thought that Ling Yan had planned today's incident a long time ago, such that even accusing the Mo family seemed to be part of his plan from the start. I keep feeling as though I'm being led by the nose. Yi Qingtang sighed. Right now, she was extremely admirable of those who were enemies with Ling Yan. How courageous must they be to oppose such an intelligent rival? At that instant, a sound suddenly came from Yi Qingtang's voice transmission stone. Miss Yi. Yi Qingtang took the voice transmission stone out. I thought you threw the voice transmission stone away. Yi Qingtang mumbled. She wanted to contact Ling Yan these few days and notify him of the eldest prince's plans, but there was completely no response from the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan chuckled. How would I bear to throw the voice transmission stone if I know that you will use it to contact me? Don't worry, Miss Yi, I've been keeping the voice transmission stone carefully. Chapter 1325 had a lot of fun 3-inch. So he has been playing dead these few days? I am here to thank you today, Miss Yi, Ling Yan said. What are you thanking me for? Yi Qingtang was perplexed. I had a lot of fun thanks to you, Miss Yi. Ling Yan replied with a laugh. Why did this sentence sound so strange? She suddenly had a strong urge to beat him up. What should she do? Don't get complacent so early. Your siblings have not given up the thought to kill you. They were overjoyed when you accused the Mo family. Ling Yan, you're really merciless to accuse even your fiancé. I wonder how hard she is crying right now. Yi Qingtang commented with a sigh. Ling Yan's laughter could be heard from the voice transmission stone. There is no need for anyone who is disrespectful to you to exist. Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback. What Ling Yan said, why did it seem like he only accused the Mo family for her? Uncontrollably, she recalled the day of the banquet when Mo Yunxian was disrespectful to her. Could it be that? Yi Qingtang shook her head out of a sudden. Wait. She could not be deceived by this darn fox. Anyway, did you predict how the eldest prince and the rest wanted to ruin you and planned your moves a long time ago? Yi Qingtang divulged her guesses. There's no need to predict or plan anything with regard to them. Had he belittled their intelligence to such a state? I've said before that it would be very boring without your assistance, Ling Yan said gently. Forget it. I don't wish to be involved in these matters anymore. Yi Qingtang deeply believed that if this continued on, she would be thoroughly defeated by a certain someone. Although she had no choice but to help the eldest prince, she was still the one devising all the schemes. This was equivalent to her having a battle of wits with Ling Yan. God knows how tormenting this was. I'm afraid that you will still be involved even if you don't wish to. Ling Yan added on softly. The Temple of Shadows sent you here with the intention of testing you. If you don't wish to be involved, you will definitely expose yourself. She wished to die right now. Didn't you come to the central mainland to snatch back everything that belongs to you? Being in the Temple of Shadows may bring some hardships, but it is the most suitable option for you, Ling Yan said slowly as though he guessed Yi Qingtang's thoughts. The ancient Yu clan is formidable, and it is extremely difficult if you were to fight them alone. However, if you fight them as the Holy Lord of Shadows, how do you think it will turn out? I am not the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. Is it important whether you are the Holy Lord of Shadows or not? As long as the Temple of Shadows believes that you are their Holy Lord, then you are it. Chapter 1326 Force him to revolt. Ling Yan could not help but chuckle at Yi Qingtang's reply. Holy Sun Ming Wang should have reached the capital by now. You need to do your best in playing the role of the Holy Lord, Miss Yi. Upon hearing of Ming Wang's arrival, Yi Qingtang's lofty ambitions fell apart. In the entire Temple of Shadows, Ming Wang was her largest source of pressure. He had never trusted her from the start and even sent Lady Ghost to monitor her. And now, he actually came personally. Just great. You'll have to be careful then. As the Holy Lord of Shadows, I will definitely support the eldest prince to ascend as the crown prince. Yi Qingtang sighed. The Temple of Shadows was a double-edged sword, and it would not be so easy for her to wield it to her advantage. Just bring it on, Miss Yi. I can still handle it. Ling Yan replied with a light-hearted laugh. Sighing, Yi Qingtang did not say anything much and kept the voice transmission stone. The conversation with Ling Yan today changed her mindset. Previously, all she wanted was to escape from the Temple of Shadows, but now, she must become the Holy Lord of Shadows. As expected, the eldest prince and the rest did not abandon the thought of ruining Ling Yan after their foiled scheme. They had tried different ways over the past few days. However, not only were they unable to touch Ling Yan at all, but they were even counterattacked by him. In half a month, Ling Yan's position as the crown prince was rather secure thanks to the assistance of the eldest prince and second princess. Elder Yi. Ling Yan's position is increasingly secure in my father's heart. Ah, the eldest prince wore an ugly expression in the hall. Despite joining forces with the second princess, the eldest prince's schemes had no effect at all and, helpless, he could only look for Yi Qingtang again to request for her help. Yi Qingtang was very speechless as she looked at the gloomy faces of the people in the hall. She finally realized what an incompetent teammate was like. Only people with their brains could come up with those pointless plots. She really doubted if they were truly Ling Yan's siblings. Why was there such a great difference in their intelligence despite being born from the same parents? Stop all the plans on your hands. Otherwise, Ling Yan's position as the crown prince will only be more and more stable. Although Yi Qingtang had a smile on her face, there was a certain strictness in her tone. Noticing Yi Qingtang's actions, Lady Ghost discreetly looked over to a corner. Nonetheless, this casual action of hers did not escape Yi Qingtang's eyes. Yi Qingtang did not move, but the side of her eyes glanced over to the direction which Lady Ghost looked at. A hardly detectable aura of death lurked in the dark. It's Ming Wang. Yi Qingtang pondered in her heart and recalled her conversation with Ling Yan the other day. She secretly took a deep breath and looked at the eldest prince as though she did not notice Ming Wang's presence. Given Ling Yan's current position, the only way you all can defeat him is to force him to revolt. Revolt? The eldest prince and second princess were taken aback. But Ling Yan is not a fool, and father dotes on him so much now. Additionally, his position as the crown prince is so stable right now, and he will become the next emperor once father is old. Why would he take such a risk? The second princess asked with a frown. Chapter 13:27 Force him to revolt 2-inch I mean, force him to revolt. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes with a tinge of impatience in her expression. The eldest prince and second princess looked at each other in confusion as they were unable to understand the key in Yi Qingtang's words. Yi Qingtang was overwhelmed with helplessness at the group of incompetent teammates. General Mo is already dead, and General Wu Hu took over his military leadership. A long time ago, when General Wu Hu was having a difficult time, it was Ling Yan who helped him. Yi Qingtang did not slack off in the past few days, since she wanted to slowly eliminate the Temple of Shadow suspicions of her. She had to put in effort in this matter. Ling Yan rescued General Wu Hu before. Why do we not know of this? The eldest prince had a blank expression. He had investigated Ling Yan for a long time but did not notice this at all. Yi Qingtang could not be bothered with the eldest prince and replied. Ling Yan's accusation of General Mo won the emperor's trust, but if he did it only for his trusted aide to replace General Mo, the meaning is completely different. Pausing for a while, she continued on. One will inevitably fall from the pinnacle of power. What you all need to do now is to continuously show weakness to Ling Yan and secretly support his trusted aide to ascend the position. Afterward, you all can act in secret and slowly spread rumors that Ling Yan has intentions to usurp the throne. This time, Yi Qingtang truly became serious. Otherwise, with just the eldest prince and the rest, they would not have the ability to defeat Ling Yan even if the eternal emperor died. Everyone was stunned by Yi Qingtang's words, and they exchanged a look. What Elder Yi meant is, for us to assist Ling Yan to consolidate his power. But by then, if we cannot defeat, the eldest prince was slightly hesitant. Why do you all need to counter him? Yi Qingtang looked down slightly and said without emotion. As long as you all are able to raise the emperor's suspicions of Ling Yan, the emperor will naturally make a move out of fear of his power. Then, Ling Yan will either await his doom and be stripped of his crown prince title or revolt with his army. It's no longer important whether he really intends to usurp the throne or not, as the circumstances will force him to take action. The eldest prince and the rest were still uncertain. I am merely telling you all to show weakness on the surface, but you all can still retain your forces in secret. Once Ling Yan revolts, you all can take credit for capturing him and restoring peace. Yi Qingtang added on. The eldest prince and second princess sighed in relief upon hearing that. Elder Yes, wisdom is above all. Once Ling Yan loses father's trust, he is not far from death. The second prince truly believed that this method was vicious and forceful. Born to a royal family, they were naturally aware of how heartless an emperor would be to any child with the intention of usurping the throne. Elder Yi, may I ask how you plan to raise father's suspicions? The eldest prince questioned further. I will deal with this matter. You all don't need to worry about it. Anyways, Yi Qingtang did not hope that the eldest prince and the rest were smart, as she still needed to settle everything. The eldest prince and the rest still had some questions, but since Yi Qingtang was so certain, they believed her. Moreover, since the Temple of Shadows wanted to assist the eldest prince to ascend to the crown prince position, the eldest prince did not worry that Yi Qingtang would harm him. Thank you for your advice. The second princess rose and bowed. Although she felt that Yi Qingtang's plan was pretty good, she was not in a hurry to settle on it, as she still needed to discuss it with the advisor. Chapter 1328 Force him to revolt. 3. The second princess left very soon to discuss the matter with the advisor. Yi Qingtang was not in a hurry either, as she came up with this plan very seriously and was confident that the advisor would consent. Before eliminating Ling Yan, the Temple of Shadows and the advisor had the same goal. The eldest prince and the rest also took this time to make the preparations. They initially made many schemes to deal with Ling Yan, but after hearing what Yi Qingtang said, they hurried to cancel them. Yi Qingtang returned to her room and informed Ling Yan of her plans. She wanted to prove herself to the Temple of Shadows but did not wish to really harm Ling Yan. However, if things developed according to her plan, Ling Yan only had two routes. One was to lose the crown prince title. The other was to start a military revolt. However, Yi Qingtang felt that the safest way was to lose the crown prince title, as it was temporary, and there was still a chance of gaining it back in the future. On one side, Yi Qingtang contacted Ling Yan. On the other, Lady Ghost secretly met up with Ming Wang. Holy Son Ming Wang, what do you think of Holy Lord's plan? Lady Ghost looked at Ming Wang. She had to admit that Yi Qingtang's plan was more meticulous than before, and even she herself was rather surprised. There was no expression on Ming Wang's face, and he merely looked at Yi Qingtang's tightly shut door. Secretly send someone to inform Ling Yan. Lady Ghost was stunned. What do you wish to reveal to Ling Yan, Holy Son Ming Wang? Ming Wang replied. That Elder Yi is the Holy Lord of Shadows. Lady Ghost understood immediately. Only let Ling Yan know of this matter. Ming Wang ordered coldly. Yes. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes. Assisting the eldest prince to become the crown prince was a definite, but they also wanted Ling Yan to verify Yi Qingtang's identity. In the advisor's residence. The second princess hurried to the advisor's residence at once after leaving the eldest prince's residence and informed the advisor of Yi Qingtang's plan. After hearing it, the advisor frowned slightly. Advisor, what do you think of that Elder Yi's suggestion? The second princess asked. The advisor remained silent for a while, but the corners of his lips suddenly curled up. Not bad. The second princess exhaled immediately. The advisor continued speaking. The Temple of Shadows has been on the decline for some time, but it never lost its fundamental strength. This Elder Yi's plan is very decent and can resolve the immediate problem. Shall I arrange people to make the preparations then? The second princess asked. The advisor nodded slightly, and the second princess immediately took her leave. After she left, the advisor slowly returned to the study, where a young man was already waiting for him. Lord Shui. The young man immediately bowed when he noticed the advisor entering. The advisor nodded but did not say anything. Lightly tapping his face with his fingertip, his aged facial features, wrinkles, and white mustache disappeared in an instant. Replacing them was a face that was even more beautiful than a lattice. Are you here because Master has an order? After returning to his young face, the advisor casually sat on a chair near him and looked at the young man who kneeled before him. The young man was from the sacred ground of reflection and was here specially for the crowning of Ling Yan as the crown prince. Master heard that the Temple of Shadows ambassador is here as well and that she seems to be keen on supporting the eldest prince. The young man replied. The advisor looked down slightly and uttered without emotion. There is indeed such a matter, but it's fine. Reply to Master that the Eternal Dynasty situation is still in control and that he can rest assured. Noted. Chapter 1329 You are on your own. 1. Possibly because all their earlier schemes had failed, the eldest prince and second princess were much smarter this time. They did not act precipitously but followed Yi Qingtang's instructions and allowed the courtiers and influence they had gathered to disperse. They began to effusively praise the crown prince, Ling Yan, when they were in court. With the help of his 3 royal siblings, Ling Yan's reputation grew daily until it almost reached its peak within half a month. The emperor was very pleased with this and often praised Ling Yan. Although the eldest prince was agitated when he saw this, he knew it was part of the plan. As he saw Ling Yan's power continue to grow, he could not help but worry inwardly. However, he continued to maintain a facade of brotherly affection and respect. Every day, the eldest prince and princess would tell Yi Qingtang what happened in the morning court session. Yi Qingtang was not at court, but she controlled the situation. Elder Yi, the war at the border is almost over. Although Wu Hu only recently took over the command of General Mo's troops, he acted fast and won several successive victories. He will probably withdraw his troops and return to court before long. Once Wu Hu is back, based on the connection between him and Ling Yan that Elder Yi mentioned earlier, I'm afraid, the eldest prince was worried. His greatest hope was for Ling Yan to raise troops and rebel, but to date, no such opportunity had arisen. The situation just dragged on, so he was feeling rather anxious. Yi Qingtang could tell that the eldest prince and the others were growing anxious. She said, "These are letters between Wu Hu and Ling Yan." As she spoke, Yi Qingtang placed a stack of letters in front of the eldest prince. The eldest prince could not help but feel somewhat surprised. He did not know how Yi Qingtang had gotten hold of these letters, but he opened them one by one and read them. The eldest prince was shocked by what he read. Ling Yan intends to raise troops and rebel when Wu Hu returns to the capital. The letters were full of how Ling Yan planned to form an alliance with General Wu Hu and how upon General Wu Hu's triumphant return with his troops, Ling Yan would seize the opportunity to take over the capital and force the emperor to abdicate. Eldest royal brother, have you looked carefully? Are these letters really in Ling Yan's and General Wu Hu's handwriting? The eldest prince's heart thumped as she asked carefully. The eldest prince replied. There can be no mistake. I clearly remember Ling Yan's handwriting, and this was definitely written by him. I have also seen General Wu Hu's writing when I was at his residence, and it does look the same. Also, these letters have the Crown Prince's golden seal and General Wu Hu's seal. The eldest prince's heart beat wildly. If these letters were presented to the Eternal Emperor, Ling Yan would be finished. I thought my third royal brother was intelligent. I didn't realize he was so stupid. He exposed his own ambitions before we could think of how to trap him, the eldest princess said with a cold laugh. Elder Yi, how did you get hold of these letters? The eldest prince was greatly agitated, but he was curious as to how such secret documents had fallen into Yi Qingtang's hands. One must know that Ling Yan was always careful, and such documents could not have been obtained easily. Furthermore, Yi Qingtang had not left her residence all this while. Of course, Elder Yi must have asked the others from the Temple of Shadows to obtain them. No matter how great our third royal brother is, he is no match for the Temple of Shadows, the eldest princess said matter-of-factly. Lady Ghost's gaze involuntarily fell on Yi Qingtang. She had not seen Yi Qingtang contact anyone else from the Temple of Shadows and had not heard Yi Qingtang mention anything about obtaining these letters. Yi Qingtang slowly sipped her tea and said calmly, "Do all of you think these documents are real?" Ya was just the way she used to be. Lady Ghost gave a small smile, but she secretly looked towards Ming Wang's position. But at some point, Ming Wang, who had been hiding in a secret spot, had vanished completely. When Yi Qingtang returned to her room and ensured that no one had followed her, she immediately took out the voice transmission stone. Ling Yan, I'm about to act. Yi Qingtang called him softly and spoke. Ling Yan's laughter rang out from the voice transmission stone. His agreeable voice was warm and held a hint of amusement. I suppose my siblings are now greatly indebted to Miss Ye's kindness. Miss Yi, no need to be merciful. Give it your best shot. Chapter 1331 You are on your own. 3 Yi Qingtang secretly rolled her eyes. Why don't you think of some way to deal with it rather than quibble with me? Ling Yan said with a laugh, Miss Yi, thanks for your concern. Yi Qingtang was about to say something when Ling Yan suddenly said, Miss Yi has a guest. I won't disturb you any longer. With that, Ling Yan broke off their connection. A moment after Ling Yan broke off the connection, a knock sounded on Yi Qingtang's door. Yi Qingtang was startled and immediately got up to open the door. Ming Gu was standing obediently at the doorway, smiling at Yi Qingtang. "Ah Yao, you little fellow, are you here to disturb me again?" Yi Qingtang's lips suddenly curved in amusement, and she reached out to pinch Ming Gu's little nose. Ming Gu looked shy and lowered his eyes to hide the stiffness in his expression. "Come on in," Yi Qingtang said with a smile. She turned first but secretly drew a deep breath. "What the hell?" Ming Wang posed as Ming Gu to look for me. Yi Qingtang was very wary of the devious Ming Wang. Although she knew that Ming Wang was here, he had yet to reveal himself. But now, Ming Wang had taken on Ming Gu's adorable and innocent look to appear in front of her. Yi Qingtang wanted to die. She had actually pinched that killer's, Ming Wang's, nose? Haha, Ming Gu quietly stood outside the door for a moment before he entered on his little legs. He maintained his coy appearance. Yi Qingtang tried her best to maintain her composure and did not dare to let her expression change. She sat down on a chair and gestured to Ming Gu, who was standing by her side. Ming Gu slowly walked over to Yi Qingtang, raised his little face, and threw himself onto Yi Qingtang's knee. "Ah Yao, when can we go back to the Temple of Shadows?" Yi Qingtang looked at the Ming Gu before her, and her heart constricted. But she smiled and reached out to pinch Ming Gu's little cheek. "We can go back when matters here are settled." "Ah Yao, why don't I find some black flame worms for you when we get back?" Ming Gu said with a smile. Yi Qingtang's guts started to roil. As she looked at Ming Gu, an evil idea arose in Yi Qingtang's heart. She scooped Ming Gu up and cuddled him on her knee. A stiff look flashed across Ming Gu's eyes, but he quickly restrained himself. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes and smiled. Then, she used both hands to pinch Ming Gu's little face. She said with a laugh, "Ming Wang, do you want to eat black flame worms so badly? What's the matter? Are you still thinking about the time Ming Gu didn't give you the black flame worm?" Yi Qingtang's words startled Ming Gu. "You keep on testing me. Today, I will pinch you in return." Yi Qingtang took the opportunity to pinch his soft face a few more times. In a flash, Ming Wang jumped down from Yi Qingtang's lap. His smiling and innocent appearance had vanished to be replaced by his aloof and vicious expression. "What's the matter? Are you so scared of me?" Yi Qingtang looked at Ming Wang smilingly, but her heart was in her mouth. The real Holy Lord of Shadows would certainly be able to tell Ming Gu and Ming Wang apart. No matter how similar they looked, there was no mistaking them. Furthermore, the Holy Lord of Shadows certainly would not be afraid of Ming Wang. Chapter 1332 First Move 1 At that moment, Ming Wang's eyes, which were totally devoid of human emotion, were staring straight at Yi Qingtang as if searching her eyes for some crack in her facade. Yi Qingtang's lips curved upwards slightly, and the small smile on her face turned cold. "Ming Wang, do you know how Zhui Gong died?" When Yi Qingtang mentioned Zhui Gong, Ming Wang's eyes flickered, and his brow furrowed slightly. Zhui Gong had been the most powerful tribe leader in the Temple of Shadows. His martial skills were incomparable, but at one point, he became disrespectful of the Holy Lord of Shadows. However, the Holy Lord of Shadows had cut off his head just for showing a trace of disrespect. His body had been exposed to the burning sun until it vanished. "Ming Wang, after my return, I became increasingly aware that you are somewhat like Zhui Gong. What do you think?" Yi Qingtang wore an inscrutable smile. "Oh." Death aura swirled around Ming Wang, and his eyes flashed. "Holy Lord, please tell me how I am like Zhui Gong." Yi Qingtang sat further away and remained motionless, though her fingers drummed a rhythm on the tabletop. Her lips arched in an inscrutable smile. "So you are about to become like a second Zhui Gong." As she spoke, a cold light flashed across Yi Qingtang's eyes. Although she continued to smile charmingly, her smile was now bone-chilling. Ming Wang frowned slightly as Yi Qingtang slowly stood up, and the death aura around him vanished suddenly. He cupped his fists and said, "Holy Lord, I dare not take on this charge. Zhui Gong was a criminal who offended the Lord. How can the Holy Lord compare me to Zhui Gong?" When she heard that, Yi Qingtang laughed softly and rose to walk over to Ming Wang. She bent over slightly and lightly trailed a finger across Ming Wang's face. "What is the penalty for offending the Lord?" "Someone who offends the Lord will certainly be put to death," said Ming Wang. "Ming Wang, you are really rather adorable. I like you more and more." When Yi Qingtang finished speaking, she brushed her fingers lightly over Ming Wang's forehead. "Tell me, why did you pretend to be Ming Gu? The Holy Lord is joking." "The Holy Lord was the one who assumed I was my brother. I was merely playing along with the Holy Lord. I did not mean cause offense," said Ming Wang. "You came to look for me. What did you want to discuss with me?" Yi Qingtang withdrew her right hand and looked at Ming Wang coldly as she spoke. "I came to look for the Holy Lord to discuss the Eternal Dynasty's prince," replied Ming Wang. "Speak." Yi Qingtang flicked her sleeves. "Holy Lord, the current crown prince, Ling Yan, is almost demonically clever. He is very difficult to deal with. Is the Holy Lord certain that she wants to offend the crown prince, Ling Yan, in order to support the eldest prince? If Ling Yan can be brought down, that is well and good." Chapter 1333 First Move 2-inch Holy Lord, I meant that Ling Yan is an intelligent person, many times more intelligent than the eldest prince. Why shouldn't the Temple of Shadows support Ling Yan instead of the eldest prince? The Temple of Shadows needs intelligent people more, Ming Wang said thoughtfully. Wrong. Yi Qingtang shook her head. The Temple of Shadows does not need intelligent people. When you have absolute power, any plot can be easily broken. When he heard that, Ming Wang remained silent for a moment before he said, "The Holy Lord is right. I was overly concerned. You may leave." Yi Qingtang waved her hand somewhat impatiently. When he heard Yi Qingtang's words, Ming Wang turned to leave. When she was sure that Ming Wang had left, Yi Qingtang broke out in a cold sweat. Her entire body was already soaked in sweat. Today was just too dangerous. This Ming Wang is not to be underestimated. If she had not forced herself to remain calm so that Ming Wang could not see through her, she might have lost the secret duel with Ming Wang just now. The consequences were unimaginable. Ming Wang's every word was a test of whether the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows was authentic or not. Like his suggestion that they support Ling Yan. If she had agreed, she would probably have paid with her life there and then. With the Holy Lord of Shadows' power, she could exterminate the Eternal Dynasty with a flick of her fingers. She had no need to fear Ling Yan's demonic intelligence. Even the Zhui Gong incident was something that Yi Qingtang had heard of in her previous life, which was why she could speak about it. Fuck, that holy son Ming Wang is really formidable. The little white tiger swiftly poked his head out and leaped onto the bed. The holy son, Ming Wang, has begun to suspect your identity. Fortunately, you managed to present a calm front, otherwise, you would have already lost your head, the little white tiger said seriously as it looked at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang did not refute any of the little white tiger's words. Ever since she became the Holy Lord of Shadows, the holy son Ming Wang had been suspicious of her identity from the moment they met. With Holy Son Ming Wang's personality, if he discovered the truth, she would immediately die a terrible death. It was really difficult to pose as the Holy Lord of Shadows. Just as Yi Qingtang was sighing secretly, she heard another knock on the door. Ah Yao, Yi Qingtang got up and opened the room door. The Holy Son, Ming Gu, was standing at the doorway. He looked at Yi Qingtang in shock and said, "Ah Yao, I just saw my elder brother leave your room. It was nothing, I was just discussing something with Ming Wang." Yi Qingtang explained. Ming Gu was filled with suspicion. He thought that Ming Wang was not coming this time, so why had he suddenly arrived. Minggu wanted to enter the room and chat with Yi Qingtang, but Yi Qingtang dismissed him, saying that she needed to rest. Meanwhile, the scheme to force Ling Yan to rebel went forward without any pause. Right now, Ling Yan's influence was growing, and General Wu Hu's power was growing in tandem with his. Ling Yan's influence and reputation within the Eternal Dynasty reached unprecedented heights, especially as the eldest prince and second princess continued to present their weak flank to Ling Yan. Many of the ministers had already secretly signaled their favor of Ling Yan. At that moment, in the palace of the Eternal Dynasty, in the main hall. Royal Father. The eldest prince kneeled on one knee and gazed at the Eternal Emperor. The Crown Prince is intriguing to kill the Emperor and seize the throne. Chapter 1334 First Move 3 At that moment, the Eternal Emperor was grimly looking at the letters that the eldest prince, the eldest princess, and the second princess had handed him. These letters were private correspondence between Ling Yan and General Wu Hu. Their contents were treasonous and heinous. The Eternal Emperor studied the documents over and over. The seals on the documents did belong to General Wu Hu, and the handwriting matched Ling Yan's handwriting. Ling Yan's faction had recently reached the peak of its powers, summoned the Crown Prince. The Eternal Emperor was raging in the palace. Half a day later, Ling Yan arrived in court. The Eternal Emperor immediately flung the letters in Ling Yan's face. Look at this. When he heard that, Ling Yan opened the letters and studied them for a moment. Ling Yan, what explanation can you give? The Eternal Emperor glared at Ling Yan and roared at him in rage. Royal Father, please don't be angry. Ling Yan's lips curved upwards slightly in a mysterious smile as he looked at the Eternal Emperor. I think that someone might have forged these letters. Oh. The Eternal Emperor grunted coldly. In that case, I give you 3 days to get to the bottom of the matter. I will take my leave. Ling Yan turned to leave. Royal Father, do you really believe that these letters were forged? The eldest prince saw that the situation was going against them and spoke hurriedly. Even they had not been able to tell that these letters were forged. But just based on a few words from Ling Yan, the Eternal Emperor looked at the eldest prince and second princess and said, keep a close eye on Ling Yan. If he shows any sign of treason, kill him. The eldest prince immediately looked delighted at the Eternal Emperor's words. He hurriedly cupped his fists and said, don't worry, Royal Father, I will certainly play my part. With that, the eldest prince and second princess turned to leave. The eldest prince and second princess were overjoyed. This elder Yi from the Temple of Shadows had really come up with a good scheme. Since their royal father had ordered them to keep an eye on Ling Yan, would it not be up to them to say whether Ling Yan had any treasonous intentions? Summon all our troops, contain Ling Yan. At that moment, the eldest prince was speaking coldly with a stern expression. Even if we kill Ling Yan within the capital, we can explain it to our royal father by saying that Ling Yan was prepared to raise troops and rebel. The second princess smiled slightly. This time, they would not need the advisor or the Temple of Shadows to kill Ling Yan. They could easily finish the job themselves. A moment later, 2 generals were leading hundreds of soldiers clad in black armor to surround the city gates. Here he comes. The eldest prince's gaze fell on Ling Yan, who was walking by himself, in front of them. Royal brother and sister, what are you doing? Ling Yan had arrived at the city gate and looked at the eldest prince and second princess with some surprise. Humph. The eldest prince scoffed coldly and said, Ling Yan, you deceived and defied the emperor. You planned a revolt to kill the emperor and seize the throne. Do you admit to your guilt? What? Ling Yan frowned slightly. Ah. Third royal brother, you have been writing to traitors. The evidence is irrefutable. There is no way that you can deny it, the second princess said with a cold laugh. She looked at the troops clad in black armor that were standing behind her. Kill. Just a moment. At that moment, Ling Yan smiled faintly and spoke softly. What's the matter? Are you regretting it now? The eldest princess looked disdainful. Since you dared to rebel, you better be prepared to lose your head. My elder royal sister makes sense. Ling Yan nodded. But I haven't denied the charges yet. When they heard that, the eldest prince and second princess were taken aback. What did Ling Yan mean? My royal elder brother and sisters are incomparably intelligent, so I shall just speak plainly. Ling Yan looked at them, and his lips curved slightly. His expression was incredibly sinister. Seal the capital. Chapter 1335 Checkmate 1 Inch. What did you say? The eldest princess thought she misheard him. What did Ling Yan say just now? Seal the imperial city. However, the moment Ling Yan spoke, millions of black armor troops proceeded to seal the entire imperial city immediately. At this instant, General Wu Hu led the black armor troops through the city gate without any emotions and walked to Ling Yan's side. He kneeled and greeted him. Emperor, the men are deployed. No one is allowed to leave this imperial city today. Very good. Ling Yan replied with a smile. You all, the eldest princess was completely dumbfounded as she looked in disbelief. This General Wu Hu actually addressed Ling Yan as the emperor. Ling Yan. How dare you revolt? The eldest prince hollered furiously. The eldest prince never thought that Ling Yan really dared to revolt. Moreover, looking at the current situation, it was obvious that Ling Yan already had a detailed deployment before, which thus allowed him to hide millions of black armor troops around the imperial city. Impossible. The second princess shook her head in disbelief. No matter how intelligent Ling Yan was, it was definitely impossible to hide millions of black armor troops in the imperial city. Did father not sense anything at all? How could it be? The eldest prince, eldest princess, and second princess started an armed revolt to murder the emperor and usurp the throne. I executed them on the spot, but unfortunately, father failed to be rescued and was already killed by the three rebels. Ling Yan looked at the three royal siblings with a seeming smile and said. Ling Yan, what are you saying? The eldest prince trembled slightly in disbelief. Eldest royal brother, you colluded with eldest royal sister and second royal sister in the revolt, sealed the imperial city, and killed father. I brought General Wu Hu to rescue father, but it's too late, unfortunately. Right? Ling Yan looked at the eldest prince with a slight smile. Nonsense. Ling Yan, how audacious of you. The eldest prince shouted. Ha! Is that so? A devilish smile emerged on Ling Yan's face. You three are merely chess pieces. Afterward, without giving them a chance to speak, Ling Yan told General Wu Hu. How can the game go on if these three people aren't killed? I'm afraid father will be disappointed as well, won't he? Kill. General Wu Hu nodded and ordered the numerous black armor troops. How dare you all? I am supported by the Temple of Shadows. Who dares to kill me? The eldest prince shouted coldly. I am supported by the sacred ground of reflection. Who dares to kill me? The second princess shouted as well. Swoosh. Yet, the moment they finished their sentences, the eldest prince, eldest princess, and second princess were beheaded in a flash. Ling Yan watched in smiles without a hint of sympathy as the three headless bodies collapsed to the ground. Our game can only go on this way. Isn't that right? Ling Yan chuckled. After the trio was killed by Ling Yan, war drums suddenly echoed in the imperial city. Subsequently, the Eternal Emperor appeared before everyone along with the rumbling drums. His eyes were cold, but a hint of mockery emerged when he glanced at the corpses of the eldest prince, eldest princess, and second princess. Crown Prince Ling Yan committed a serious crime by plotting to usurp the throne and killing the eldest prince, eldest princess, and second princess. The Eternal Emperor shouted furiously in a voice like that of rolling thunder. Father, the game is now more interesting with your appearance. Ling Yan smiled briefly at the Eternal Emperor. Yi Qingtang rushed over after hearing that the eldest prince gathered troops to counter Ling Yan. Currently, she hid in a secret corner with the little white tiger in her arms and observed the exciting show. Chapter 1336 Checkmate 2-inch What the fuck? What is going on? The little white tiger seemed shocked. Yi Qingtang remained silent. Looking at the scene before her, everything was clear. It had been the Eternal Emperor's one-man show from the beginning. He treated everyone as a chess piece, including Ling Yan, eldest prince, and the rest. Oh. Son, it seems like you already know about it. The Eternal Emperor snickered. Father, your emperor title is the most important to you. You appointed me as the crown prince only to balance the situation. To prevent a single party from becoming too powerful, the best way for you is for all your children to die. This way, no one will be able to threaten your position as the emperor. Isn't that it? Ling Yan chuckled lightly. Is that what you think? The Eternal Emperor asked. No emperor would want to step down from his position. Unfortunately, your children have all grown up while you have aged, and you need to pass down the position to your children. To extend your time as the emperor, you intentionally appointed the fourth prince as the crown prince. Afterward, you personally killed him to lower the guard of the eldest prince and the rest. Then, you appointed me as the crown prince to create a situation where my royal brother and sisters would fight it out with me. A pretty good plot, Ling Yan said with a smile. Many people guessed that either the eldest prince or second princess was responsible for the fourth prince's death. Yet, no one would have thought that the true murderer of the fourth prince was the Eternal Emperor. Anything else? The Eternal Emperor asked interestedly. Of course. Ling Yan nodded slightly and spoke. Royal brother and sister plotted to frame me as a rebel. Thus, they intentionally showed weakness to me and allowed my forces to strengthen. Over the past few days, I hid millions of troops within the imperial city, and it's impossible for you to not know. Earlier on, you allowed me to leave the palace merely to use me to kill my royal siblings. Once that is so, you have a reason to execute me, the current crown prince, while you can keep your emperor title forever without any worries. Ha 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 ha. The Eternal Emperor erupted in laughter after hearing Ling Yan out and looked at him in slight admiration. Not bad. Truly not bad. You're indeed my son. You live up to the reputation of having a demon-like intelligence. Hearing that the Eternal Emperor admitted to the charges, the black armor troops which General Wu Hu brought were all stunned and even in disbelief. In order to not step down from his position, the Eternal Emperor actually passed the crown prince position to the youngest fourth prince and subsequently killed him in order to start a strife. Afterward, he then passed the crown prince position to the weakest Ling Yan and allowed him to strengthen his power without interfering. Ultimately, he used Ling Yan to kill the eldest prince, eldest princess, and second princess. This way, the Eternal Emperor had a reason to execute Ling Yan. Then, all of the Eternal Emperor's children would be dead, and he could keep his emperor title forever. How malicious and scheming, Ling Yan, surrender yourself, and I will allow you to die in one piece. The Eternal Emperor snickered coldly as he looked at the calm Ling Yan. Allow me to die in one piece, Ling Yan smiled at the Eternal Emperor. So, why do you believe that you will definitely defeat me? Although the Eternal Emperor had a frightening martial cultivation base, Ling Yan's current forces were even more terrifying, and the Eternal Emperor could not go against Ling Yan by himself. With him, what do you think? The Eternal Emperor looked in the distance. He did not believe that Yi Qingtang was the true Holy Lord, but, if she was fake, how would Ling Yan yield to her? Things were increasingly strange. Holy Lord Senior, how about giving face to the sacred ground of reflection today? The advisor looked at Yi Qingtang while emphasizing the sacred ground of reflection. Get lost. Yi Qingtang spoke plainly. What did you say? The advisor's eyes sharpened after hearing that. Minggu. Yi Qingtang looked at Minggu suddenly. I'm here, Yao. Minggu immediately moved to her. Don't you find him very irritating? Yi Qingtang smiled. Minggu agreed, and he darted to the advisor like a bolt of lightning. Swoosh! With the swing of a palm, the advisor retreated dozens of steps and spat mouthfuls of blood halfway. Chapter 1338 Flood 1-inch Temple of Shadows. Holy Sun Minggu, the advisor paled and gritted his teeth. Great, the advisor continued. As expected, of the Holy Lord of Shadows. It is a small world. The sacred ground of reflection will remember this. Leaving that sentence, the advisor crushed a talisman in his hand and vanished instantly. The Eternal Emperor had an ugly expression when he saw that the advisor disappeared. The advisor had already left, and Ling Yan yielded to the Temple of Shadows. The outcome was fixed. Ling Yan had won this round completely. You have had enough fun today, father. Ling Yan looked at the Eternal Emperor with a smile. The Eternal Emperor resembled a defeated chicken in a cockfight. Ling Yan, you're indeed smart. I belittled you. Ling Yan chuckled. The eldest prince, second princess, and others plotted a revolt and sealed the city. Father was killed in the chaos. I led the troops here, but it was already too late. Although I killed the rebels, I failed to save you. The Eternal Emperor's expression darkened. The events had reached this point, and he could not do anything. Ling Yan immediately ordered the Eternal Emperor to be imprisoned secretly, and future decisions would be made only after Ling Yan settled down as the next emperor. Thank you, Holy Lord. Eternal Dynasty is safe today all thanks to your great efforts. Ling Yan turned to Yi Qingtang and bowed. Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan with perplexed feelings. For some reason, she felt like she was schemed by this fellow. Without showing any expression on her face, she glanced at Ling Yan indifferently and took her leave. Lady Ghost and the rest followed. In just a day, Ling Yan released the news that the eldest prince and the rest revolted and that the emperor was already dead. The entire nation mourned. Meanwhile, Ling Yan, who was already the crown prince, contributed in capturing the rebels and had a positive reputation due to the eldest prince's display of weakness, thus naturally ascending to the throne. However, on Ling Yan's ascension, an extremely rare flood happened in the Eternal Dynasty. Tumultuous waves rolled in from the opposite shore and into the Eternal Dynasty in half a day, and the entire imperial city of the Eternal Dynasty was engulfed before their naked eyes. So be it if it was an ordinary flood. However, for some reason, that flood was extremely corrosive that even metals melted in it. The once glorious imperial city was now completely engulfed in the endless flood. In the rolls of waves, only a pile of debris remained. Even the tall and sturdy buildings gradually collapsed and corroded in the corrosive flood. Everything was ruined in seconds. Wu Hu stood in the air and watched the flood beneath him with a heavy expression. He looked up at Ling Yan, who was floating in the air ahead of him. The new emperor had just ascended the throne, but such an anomaly happened in the Eternal Dynasty. In just a day, more than half of the Eternal Dynasty was destroyed, and even the imperial city failed to escape this disaster. Your Majesty, there has never been such a natural disaster in the Eternal Dynasty. What exactly? Wu Hu frowned slightly. Watching the flood beneath him, Ling Yan's lips curled into a snicker. Natural disaster. It's man-made. What? Wu Hu was stunned. But the moment Ling Yan finished speaking, a faint golden light appeared in the sky ahead of them. The evening glow and the golden light seemed to merge as one as thunderous drumming sounds pierced the air. Chapter 1339 Flood. Two numerous black shadows gradually arrived from the sky afar. There were 8 enormous demonic beasts that were armed with golden mail and reined by golden chains. Each demonic beast pulled a golden carriage of which had the engraving of an ancient totem. Nearly 100 people who were mounted on vultures surrounded the golden carriages, creating a huge bravado. Looking at the sight, no one could tell their numbers. Wu Hu was shocked to see the totem on the golden carriage. That is Ancient Yu Clan. What was going on? Everyone in the central mainland knew about the Ancient Yu Clan. In the entire central mainland, there were barely any forces who dared to offend the Ancient Yu Clan. The Eternal Dynasty had always been extremely respectful toward the Ancient Yu Clan and never offended it, but why did the Ancient Yu Clan people suddenly come today? Ling Yan looked up slightly, and a trace of a smile emerged in his eyes as he looked at the golden carriages that were pulled by the 8 demonic beasts. Ling Yan, today is your day of ascension to the throne. The Ancient Yu Clan is specially here to congratulate you. A deep and distant voice suddenly rang from a golden carriage. Today's flood is the Ancient Yu Clan's congratulatory gift to you. Wu Hu was astonished. This flood was actually the Ancient Yu Clan's doing? How could this be? They had never incurred the hatred of the Ancient Yu Clan though. How does it feel to watch your own imperial city being submerged in a flood? When you boldly poisoned the water that the Ancient Yu Clan drank from back then, you should have expected this outcome. Ling Yan, however, smiled faintly and cupped his fists courteously. Then I really have to thank the Ancient Yu Clan for bringing this flood to engulf the entire imperial city. Ling Yan, are you still able to pretend to be calm at this point in time? The person in the gold carriage snickered. Pretend? Ling Yan chuckled. I'm afraid you are mistaken. I am thanking you from the bottom of my heart. Ling Yan paused for a while and continued. I just ascended to the throne not long ago, and there are many people who have not submitted to me. It's inconvenient for me to deal with them, but unexpectedly, you all helped me to get rid of them completely. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang and the rest initially intended to return to the Temple of Shadows. After all, Yi Qingtang had to eliminate Ming Wang's suspicions of her as soon as possible since she wanted to use the Temple of Shadows to her advantage. But before Yi Qingtang left, she saw the rippling waves engulfing the entire imperial city. At this instant, Yi Qingtang, Ming Wang, and the rest were floating in the air as they watched the waves beneath them. The waves rushed in like a torrent and emitted a faint corrosive smell. What is this? Lady Ghost was overwhelmed with confusion as she looked at the outpour of waves underneath her feet. Torrential wave of the ocean. Ming Wang took a look, and his expression turned cold. It's a technique of the Ancient Yu Clan. Ancient Yu Clan? Lady Ghost was surprised. Why did the Ancient Yu Clan suddenly execute such a technique out of nowhere? Moreover, it seemed to be directed at the Eternal Dynasty. Ming Wang did not say anything and merely looked up. Then, an illusionary gray butterfly flapped its wings in the air and landed on Ming Wang's fingertips. That was a Ming butterfly that Ming Wang formed using the aura of death, which could be used to find out the nearby situation. Aside, Yi Qingtang's heart skipped a beat when she heard Ming Wang. Ancient Yu Clan. Chapter 1340 Flood 3. Before Yi Qingtang returned to her senses, Ming Wang notified them of the information that the Ming butterfly sent. Ling Yan offended the Ancient Yu Clan for some reason, and the Ancient Yu Clan is here to give him his payback. The Ancient Yu Clan is here for Ling Yan? Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback. Perhaps others were unaware of how Ling Yan formed an enmity with the Ancient Yu Clan, but Yi Qingtang was more than clear. Back when they were in the previous mainland, if not for Ling Yan, who secretly poisoned the water that Ancient Yu Clan drank and deteriorated their strength, that mainland would have been destroyed in a day. Even if they set their mind to warring with the Ancient Yu Clan, there might not even have been a chance to. The Ancient Yu Clan must be here currently for that incident. Holy Lord, our Temple of Shadows and the ancient Yu clan have always minded our own business. The ancient Yu clan is here today because of their grudge with Ling Yan, and there's no need to ask to interfere. We can leave as per our original plan. Ming Wang looked at Yi Qingtang and said. Although they did assist Ling Yan to ascend the throne, it was not worth it to go against the ancient Yu clan just over a tiny eternal dynasty. Furthermore, since the ancient Yu clan was here to seek revenge on Ling Yan, even if Ling Yan died, they could just support another emperor. Ah Yao, let's return, Ming Gu, who was glued to Yi Qingtang, said while blinking his eyes. It was evident that the Temple of Shadows did not intend to interfere with this matter. Yi Qingtang remained expressionless, but she was extremely anxious on the inside. Ling Yan offended the ancient Yu clan in order to help her, so how could she abandon Ling Yan now? Yi Qingtang accessed the situation swiftly. Looking at Ming Wang, who did not plan on meddling in this incident, she secretly took a deep breath, and her eyes darkened. Ming Wang, you are really regressing more and more as you live. Yi Qingtang's tone had a few hints of coldness. Ming Wang was slightly stunned. Yi Qingtang snickered. Since when did my Temple of Shadows have to keep a distance from the ancient Yu clan even if we crossed paths? The moment she finished her sentence, her piercingly cold eyes swept across Ming Wang. Ming Wang froze and immediately responded. Holy Lord, please simmer down. Simmer down. Yi Qingtang snickered. I've only been away from the Temple of Shadows for a few thousand years, but I never thought that you all are reduced to this state. How dare you call yourself the holy son of the Temple of Shadows with your cowardice? Ming Wang's expression froze, and he narrowed his eyes uncontrollably. Back in the Temple of Shadows Peak, it was extremely impressive and had never paid attention to any other force. Even the ancient Yu clan might keep a distance from the Temple of Shadows if they met them. Are you really scared of the ancient Yu clan? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. It's not that I am scared, but I feel that there is no need for this. Ling Yan is only a puppet for us to control the eternal dynasty. If we lose him, we can still sup, shut up. Yi Qingtang immediately interrupted Ming Wang. One has to pay regard to the status of the dog's master in beating the dog. What rights does the ancient Yu clan have to touch my man? Noted. Ming Wang was slightly startled. This style was exactly like that of the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang looked down at the flood beneath her. It's merely the ancient Yu clan. I will pay them a visit. Holy Lord, Ming Wang still wanted to say something. Chapter 1341 Ancient Yu Clan 1 Nevertheless, Yi Qingtang shot him a cold look and said, if you can't undertake the Holy Sun title, you can step aside and give the chance to a worthier person. Stop embarrassing my Temple of Shadows. Ming Wang's face darkened, but he could not say anything. The person in the golden carriage let out a snicker after hearing Ling Yan. Ling Yan, you've been known to have a demon-like intelligence. However, no matter how smart you are, it is useless today. Anyone who dares to offend the ancient Yu clan will definitely die. As that old voice sounded, a golden ray suddenly shot out from the golden carriage and bolted towards Ling Yan. Wu Hu was alarmed but realized that Ling Yan remained floating in midair without moving an inch. But just as the golden light was about to touch Ling Yan, a black aura of death suddenly rushed out and rammed against that golden ray. A rumble erupted. The force from the collision of the two forces caused freak waves in the flood. Definitely die. I doubt so. Ling Yan's lips curled into a smile, though his expression remained the same. Just as Ling Yan finished speaking, an immense aura of death suddenly filled the air. Numerous dragon roars rang in the sky. 3 enormous skeletal dragons approached from Ling Yan's back. The black aura of death lingered around the skeletal dragons, creating endless ripples as they flapped their skeletal wings. The 3 skeletal dragons led a large black bone carriage over slowly. In the evening glow, the black bone carriage was like a huge shadow that masked the setting sun. The ancient Yu clan people froze slightly when they saw the black bone carriage. The black bone carriage was owned uniquely by the undead clan, and only those with prestigious identity in the undead clan could sit in such a carriage. A clear yet eerie sound rang as the bone chime on the black bone carriage swayed in the wind. That is, the Temple of Shadows carriage. An ancient Yu clan disciple sharply noticed the unique bone chime. Only the Temple of Shadows black bone carriage had such an item. It was rumored that an evil spirit was tied to each bone chime, and anyone who heard the sound would have his soul devoured by the sound of that evil spirit if his willpower was not strong enough. Why would the Temple of Shadows appear here? Everyone from the ancient Yu clan was surprised. At this instant, the 3 skeletal dragons have already arrived before the ancient Yu clan people. The moment the skeletal dragons stopped, 3 huge mouths suddenly widened and roared to the sky, almost piercing everyone's eardrums. A thick, black aura of death blasted out from the dragons' mouths endlessly as though they wanted to devour the sky. The gray-haired elderly in the ancient Yu clan carriage narrowed his eyes at the black bone carriage. Elder, a young man from the ancient Yu clan, looked at the elderly inside the gold carriage instinctively. Why would the Temple of Shadows suddenly appear here? The elder frowned slightly but did not say anything. Woohoo could not help but shudder as he looked at the huge black bone carriage and the 3 enormous skeletal dragons in the air. Your Majesty, he instinctively wanted to ask Ling Yan, but he saw a smile on his face. Could His Majesty have planned this from the start? In the next second, the door of the golden carriage opened, and an ancient Yu clan elder slowly stepped out in a long robe. Chapter 1342 Ancient Yu clan 2-inch. May I know which friend from the Temple of Shadows is in the bone carriage? The ancient Yu clan elder probed. The ancient Yu clan and Temple of Shadows had always minded their own business and rarely had any associations. Although the Temple of Shadows was on a decline currently, their fundamental strength was still very strong. The ancient Yu clan was only here to punish Ling Yan, and they never thought that they would meet the Temple of Shadows. Furthermore, the Temple of Shadows suddenly intercepted and saved Ling Yan, much to the confusion of the ancient Yu clan elder. Who do you think you are, smelly bug? How dare you address Ayao as your friend? Ming Gu, who was beside the bone carriage, shouted and shot a cold eye at the ancient Yu clan elder. The ancient Yu clan elder frowned slightly but looked at the childlike Ming Gu, who was standing beside another undead who looked exactly the same as Ming Gu. The ancient Yu clan elder's heart stood still for a moment. Rumor had it that the holy son of the Temple of Shadows was a mutant undead that could not grow up and thus had the appearance of a child forever. Moreover, the ancient Yu clan once gained some information on the Temple of Shadows that there was not one but 2, a pair of twins, holy sons in the Temple of Shadows. Now that he saw Ming Gu and Ming Wang, the elder immediately had an idea of their identity. However, who could sit in the black bone carriage if the 2 holy sons of the Temple of Shadows were outside the carriage? A thought struck the ancient Yu clan elder abruptly, and he probed. Greetings, Holy Lord of Shadows. A soft snicker sounded from the black carriage immediately. Yet, this snicker verified the ancient Yu clan elder's guess. The person in the black bone carriage was actually the Holy Lord of Shadows who had disappeared for a long time. The ancient Yu clan elder was startled, as the Holy Lord of Shadows represented immense power. Although the ancient Yu clan was not afraid of the Temple of Shadows, the elder was still very flabbergasted by the sudden appearance of the Holy Lord of Shadows. I was unaware that the Holy Lord of Shadows was here and had been a little disrespectful. We came here today to kill Ling Yan, who offended the ancient Yu clan. Please accommodate us. The elder could not guess the meaning behind the Temple of Shadows' action to rescue Ling Yan earlier on and could only speak with a probing tone. A snicker suddenly rang from the black bone carriage. Have you all sought my approval to kill Ling Yan? The ancient Yu clan elder was taken aback. What do you mean by that, Holy Lord of Shadows? There was no response in the black bone carriage. On the other hand, Ling Yan bowed to the black bone carriage with a smile and subsequently turned to look at the ancient Yu clan elder. I have already yielded to the Temple of Shadows. What do you think this means? Ling Yan actually yielded to the Temple of Shadows? The ancient Yu clan elder was astonished. No wonder Ling Yan was so fearless. He clung on to the Temple of Shadows. Instantly, the ancient Yu clan elder narrowed his eyes and said, Holy Lord of Shadows, Ling Yan previously offended my ancient Yu clan and is someone that the ancient Yu clan must kill. Please accommodate us and hand this person to us. While the ancient Yu clan elder was stunned by the relationship between Ling Yan and the Temple of Shadows, he did not pay much attention to it. Given the Temple of Shadows' position, even if Ling Yan surrendered to the Temple of Shadows, it would not go against ancient Yu clan over just one person. However, what a joke. An aloof voice rang from the black bone carriage. On what basis should I hand someone from my Temple of Shadows to the ancient Yu clan? Chapter 1343 Ancient Yu Clan 3 The ancient Yu clan elder frowned slightly and said, The ancient Yu clan has always been extremely respectful toward the Temple of Shadows. Ling Yan is an evil man. Why would you dispute with the ancient Yu clan over a Ling Yan, Holy Lord of Shadows? Yi Qingtang looked at the ancient Yu clan through the veil in the black bone carriage, though there was a trace of nervousness on her face. She never thought that she would confront the ancient Yu clan so quickly, but fortunately, she was the Holy Lord of Shadows now. While Ling Yan, she must protect him. Furthermore, given the Holy Lord of Shadows' personality and skills, she would not fear the ancient Yu clan at all. Dispute? Is the ancient Yu clan even fit for me to dispute? Yi Qingtang inhaled deeply and said in a cold tone. The three skeletal dragons seemed to have sensed Yi Qingtang's forceful attitude and suddenly roared thunderously. The 8 giant demonic beasts from the ancient Yu clan let out a screeching howl simultaneously. Deafening sounds filled the air in a moment. The ancient Yu clan elder's face darkened. So, do you mean that you will protect Ling Yan regardless, Holy Lord? Yi Qingtang did not respond, but her attitude showed her clear stand. The ancient Yu clan elder had a dark expression. They were here today to deal with Ling Yan only, thus, only an elder, that was him, came. Although there were a number of other ancient Yu clan members, their skills were not the best. On the Temple of Shadows side, the 2 holy sons and even the Holy Lord of Shadows who had disappeared for a long time were present. If they went against the Temple of Shadows now, they would be at a disadvantage. It was definitely not the ancient Yu clan elder's wish to stir up so much trouble over one Ling Yan. Perhaps the ancient Yu clan was not afraid of confronting the Temple of Shadows, but it was not worth it. Furthermore, if they fought, they were definitely not the opponents of the Temple of Shadows' Holy Sons and Holy Lord and would all die here. After balancing his options, the ancient Yu clan elder immediately said, I can't say anything else since you are so insistent. Afterward, the ancient Yu clan elder walked straight back to the golden carriage. The moment the carriage door closed, the ancient Yu clan people set off and returned gradually. Looking at the ancient Yu clan's departure, Yi Qingtang sighed in relief in the black bone carriage. If they really fought, she might expose her identity. Luckily, they left. Yi Qingtang had to thank the fact that she was inside the black bone carriage all along, which helped her to remain calm. Otherwise, if she confronted the ancient Yu clan elder face to face, she might make mistakes under pressure. Yi Qingtang was currently covered in a cold sweat. Confronting the ancient Yu clan forces in the central mainland for the first time was a torturous feeling. The more she felt that way, the more she realized that she had to clutch onto the weapon that was the Temple of Shadows. Otherwise, with just herself, going against the entire ancient Yu clan within a short span of time was simply a useless thought. Thank you for your help today, Holy Lord. I am extremely grateful, Ling Yan said with a smile outside the black bone carriage. Yi Qingtang took a look at Ling Yan, who looked the same as usual, and faintly felt that he seemed to have planned everything that happened from the start. From when Ling Yan poisoned the ancient Yu clan's drinking water, the events seemed to have developed to Ling Yan's advantage. Even her identity as the Holy Lord of Shadows, a thought suddenly struck Yi Qingtang. Could it be that Ling Yan also planned for her to become the Holy Lord of Shadows from the start? Facebook, Twitter, more. Chapter 1344 Illusory Void. When Yi Qingtang realized something suddenly. However, it was inconvenient for Yi Qingtang to ask him anything currently. As the ancient Yu clan people left, the flood that destroyed the Eternal Dynasty also subsided. After experiencing this flood, the Eternal Dynasty suffered a lot of damage, and much effort was required to rebuild it. Ling Yan had to settle these matters while Yi Qingtang had to return to the Temple of Shadows. On the journey back to the Temple of Shadows, Yi Qingtang's mindset changed a lot as she was aware that she had to secure her identity as the Holy Lord of Shadows in order to borrow the Temple of Shadows' strength to confront the ancient Yu clan. Ming Wang observed Yi Qingtang throughout the way back. He was even more uncertain of Yi Qingtang's identity after this incident. Holy Sun. Lady Ghost met Ming Wang individually after returning to the Temple of Shadows. Prepare the illusory void, Ming Wang looked down and said slowly. Lady Ghost was slightly taken aback. Illusory void? Ming Wang nodded lightly. Lady Ghost wanted to say something but eventually took her leave without saying anything. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang's mind was bombarded with thoughts. Since she wanted to remain in the Temple of Shadows, she had to consider the steps to take from now on. Although she could pose as the Holy Lord of Shadows now by imitating her way of speaking and behavior, her skills were ultimately too weak and simply incomparable to those of the Holy Lord of Shadows. While she could somewhat deal with the situation right now, she would be exposed immediately if she had to use her skills in the future. Furthermore, Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. Even if she was going to borrow the strength of the Temple of Shadows, she may still need to personally attack the ancient Yu clan, which was utterly impossible given her current skills. It had been some time since she came to the central mainland, and she was already exhausted from dealing with the suspicions of the Temple of Shadows. Where was there spare time for cultivation? Going on like this was not an option. Just as Yi Qingtang was thinking of ways to raise her cultivation realm, she was suddenly called over by Ming Wang. He did not say anything much and instead led Yi Qingtang to the Temple of Shadows underground palace with Lady Ghost and Ming Gu. As they passed through the long tunnels, darkness gradually swamped the surroundings as the entire area was lit by only tiny flames. Yi Qingtang did not know where Ming Wang wanted to bring her to and could only wear a calm expression with the little white tiger in her arms. She could sense that ever since they returned from the Eternal Dynasty, there was a slight change in Ming Wang's attitude toward her, and she presumed this to be due to his reduced suspicions of her. However, it was not that easy for him to believe her completely. After walking for quite some time and passing endless flights of stairs, they finally reached the end. Yi Qingtang saw a huge arch in the enormous underground palace. The arch was tens of meters tall, and its top was unnoticeable in the dimness. Both sides of the arch were intricately carved with many tiny and strange nebula illustrations, while the center of the arch was embedded with a statue of a huge skull. That skull's eyes were pitch black, yet they seemed like the abyss of the netherworld that scrutinized anyone who came near. Before Yi Qingtang even went near it, she faintly felt a stifling sense of oppression through the crack of the door. Ever since you left, this illusory void has not been opened, Ming Wang said slowly as he looked at the nebular arch before him. Nonetheless, his emotionless eyes landed on Yi Qingtang after he finished speaking, seeming to be searching for something. Chapter 1345 Illusory Void 2 Illusory Void. Yi Qingtang's heart skipped a beat. She had heard a thing or two about the illusory void in her previous life. It was just that this name appeared in the second domain in her previous life. Rumor had it that the illusory void was an extremely mysterious mystic realm. No one knew when it would open nor where its entrance was. The opening time of the illusory void was completely uncontrollable, and it had been over thousands of years since the last opening. It was said that anyone who entered it would experience a surge in skills, but many also disappeared forever after entering it. Yi Qingtang looked up at the huge arch before her, and uneasiness crept into her heart. What Ming Wang said just now seemed to imply that the illusory void was right after this nebular arch. Ming Gu, who followed over, did not sense Yi Qingtang's uneasiness and instead appeared displeased as he pursed his lips at his older brother. Brother, Yao just came back not long ago. What is the hurry in entering the illusory void? Who knows when she will return once she enters? Apart from Yao, no one else can enter this illusory void. If she enters it today, I may not be able to see her for a long time. Yi Qingtang was slightly stunned by Ming Gu's words. The illusory void is really inside this door. Could it be that the Holy Lord of Shadows stumbled across this illusion and sealed it in her own secret chambers? The key point of what Ming Gu said caused Yi Qingtang to turn cold from shock. Only the Holy Lord of Shadows could enter this illusory void. Ignoring Ming Gu's complaints, Ming Wang fixed his eyes on Yi Qingtang and bowed respectfully. Holy Lord, you finally returned after such a long time. We are unable to open this illusory void, and we don't know if it is still complete. Thus, I requested you here to inspect it. Yi Qingtang's expression remained the same, but her heart dropped. It was really over this time. Never had she expected that the Holy Lord of Shadows actually hid such an illusory space. Since the Holy Lord of Shadows instilled the arch to enter the illusory space, it only recognized her, and others were unable to open it. This was all Ming Wang's test. Yet, Yi Qingtang had no other choice right now. Ming Wang's actions were extremely logical. After all, only the Holy Lord of Shadows could enter this illusory void, and no one could be certain of the situation inside over the past thousands of years. Thus, the only solution was for the Holy Lord to inspect it herself. At this moment, Yi Qingtang was in utter despair. Please inspect it, Holy Lord. Ming Wang kept a respectful expression on his face, but his eyes scrutinized her sharply. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath secretly, though she kept a straight face. Taking a glance at Ming Wang, she headed straight to the unusual nebular arch without a word. Fuck. This Ming Wang is full of schemes. The little white tiger seized the chance to mumble when Yi Qingtang reached the arch. With things as such, Yi Qingtang could only muster her courage and stretch her hand out. When her palm touched the arch, a cold blast of air rushed from the arch into her palm. The feeling was inexplicable. It seemed to be so chilly that it made one shudder, yet it also seemed to be so scorching that it made one tremble. Since it was death regardless of whether Yi Qingtang opened it or not, she could only give it her all. Chapter 1346 Illusory Void 3 Inhaling deeply, she focused on all her strength. Ming Wang narrowed his eyes at this instant. In the next second, crimson light suddenly shot out from the eyes of the huge skull. The skull's tightly shut mouth opened, letting out an incoherent growl. Astonishment flashed across Ming Wang's eyes, and an expression of surprise filled his seemingly emotionless face. The enormous nebular arch slowly activated with the skull's growl, and gray fog rushed out from inside. The door actually opened. Yi Qingtang widened her eyes in surprise at the open nebular arch, and her astonishment was no less than Ming Wang's. What was going on? Wasn't the Holy Lord of Shadows the only one able to open this arch? Could it be that Ming Wang deceived her on purpose? But Ming Gu also said that only the Holy Lord of Shadows could enter. Yi Qingtang was filled with confusion, but she had no time to analyze the reasons right now. Inside the opened arch was pitch darkness, and only gray fog rushed out to surround Yi Qingtang. Since it was opened, she could only enter. Yi Qingtang clenched her fists discreetly, summoned her courage, and walked into the darkness. As Yi Qingtang entered the nebular arch, the skull's growl finally stopped, and the crimson light faded away slowly. The open nebular arch closed along with the extinguished crimson light. The loud sound of the closing doors echoed around the entire underground palace. The astonishment on Ming Wang's face never diminished. As he looked at the tightly shut nebular arch before him, the indifference in his eyes was overshadowed by a glow like never before. Ah Yao, are you really back? On the other side, Yi Qingtang heard the sound of the nebular arch shutting behind her. However, the moment the door closed, the darkness was enshrouded by a piercing light. Yi Qingtang closed her eyes instinctively. Before she adjusted to this strong light, a burst of laughter traveled into her ears. How many years has it been? Someone finally entered the illusory void. I have really waited for a long time. That voice was very strange. It sounded like that of an elderly yet also like that of a young child. Two starkly different feelings were blended into this one voice. Yi Qingtang opened her eyes slowly. The strong light had already disappeared and was replaced by a jaw-dropping scene. A large nebula filled her surroundings. It was as though numerous stars filled the dark night sky, which appeared to span across limitlessly from where she was standing. This is, Yi Qingtang looked down and realized that she was actually stepping on stars. The nebula beneath her moved, and there was nothing to stand on. It was as though she was in space right now. This is the illusory void. Astonishment filled Yi Qingtang's eyes. Never would she have thought that inside the nebular arch hid such an illusory galaxy. Welcome to the illusory void, lucky explorer. That voice rang once again, though there was no source. It was as though every corner of this nebula could hear the voice clearly. Explorer, Yi Qingtang pondered over the meaning of this term repeatedly. Chapter 1347 Constellations 1 Suddenly, the scattered stars started to concentrate together. The stars glimmered and gathered into a round radiant object in front of Yi Qingtang. Hello, lucky explorer, I'm the god of nature. This place is an illusion formed from my soul. A voice arose from the radiant object. It kept changing its shape but did not reach a final state. God of nature. Yi Qingtang stared at the radiant object, and a trace of surprise flashed across her eyes. The god of nature was an ancient god. There was very little information about those ancient gods. Only some clues were left on the second domain. According to the legend, the god of nature could build all kinds of worlds. However, the legends were ancient as well. No one knew about the details. Unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang met the remnants of the god of nature and the soul in the mystic realm in the illusion. The little white tiger was carried in Yi Qingtang's arms. It squinted its eyes as it stared at the radiant object. Though the object did not have a concrete shape, the illusion was filled with majestic power. The compelling power seemed to make it difficult to breathe for anyone. The radiant object did not speak anymore. It changed its form constantly, and the radiance shrank and enlarged accordingly. In the next second, the constellations behind the radiant object seemed to change. The concentrated nebula suddenly spread out, and a few constellations among the thousands showed dreamlike colors, glimmering at the same time. Those constellations moved closer and shined in the black sky. Everything in nature produces different phenomenons. Lucky explorer, each of the 10 constellations in front of you represents a world. You can choose to enter any world in the universe freely for cultivation. This is the reward I give to explorers. The voice came out of the radiant object again. The 10 vastly different constellations floated behind it. All worlds in the universe, Yi Qingtang was taken aback by the 10 constellations. She had entered many mystic realms before, but she had never encountered a situation like this. All the worlds in the universe contain countless variations. Once you enter one of them, even the sun and the moon can be changed. The constellations in front of you are all different. From the 1st to the 10th, the effect of cultivation will increase exponentially. As the radiant object drifted, the constellations on the left side shimmered. Yi Qingtang looked towards the constellations. The higher the level of the constellation, the larger the area. The ones on the right side seemed to be boundless, and their radiance was as bright as the sun. I can choose freely. Yi Qingtang tried to suppress the shock within her and asked slowly. It was rare for people to enter the illusions, and there was almost no clue to the mystic realm. However, there was one thing for sure. Anyone who entered the illusion and came out alive had their power increased exponentially. That's right. The radiant object replied to Yi Qingtang's question. You can choose to enter any of the constellations and cultivate. You are the first one who entered here in the past thousands of years. I can give you some clues as I was alone all this time. Yi Qingtang felt relieved when she heard that there might be some clues. It seemed like the god of nature was quite kind. (1348) Constellations 2. The radiant object shook slightly, and the largest constellation made of 10 stars was surrounded by extremely bright radiance. This is the 10-star constellation and the best place for cultivation. There was one person who entered for 3 days and reached the Holy Venerate stage. 3 days to reach the Holy Venerate stage. Yi Qingtang was shocked as she stared at the 10-star nebula. It took her 300 years in her previous life to reach that stage. As long as she entered the 10-star nebula, it would only take her 3 days to reach the stage that she took 300 years in her previous life. Yi Qingtang felt excited. This is the 9-star constellation. The radiant object spoke again, and the other constellation was surrounded with radiance. There was also another person who entered and reached the Heavenly Venerate stage in 4 to 5 days. Yi Qingtang was totally shocked as she stared at the 9-star constellation. Just the cultivation speed in the 9-star constellation was astonishing enough, not to mention the 10-star constellation. Yi Qingtang lacked cultivation. Her strength stopped improving after she reached the central mainland. She was about to face the ancient Yu clan. If she did not cultivate, how could she get little Yuyun back? No wonder. The Holy Lord of Shadows sealed the illusion in his secret room. The speed of cultivation is unbelievable. Yi Qingtang was filled with excitement as she stared at the constellations. The reason why the Holy Lord of Shadows could rule the entire central mainland was due to the help from the illusory space. And Yi Qingtang also entered the space now. If you want to level up, these 2 constellations are the most suitable ones for you. They should help with your cultivation, the radiant object said. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and said, if I chose one of the constellations, can I leave any time I want? Of course. This is a reward for you, and no one will force you to do anything. The radiant object's voice was filled with a trace of a smile. Yi Qingtang's eyes sparkled. She was really lucky. If the Ming Wang did not have the intention to test her, how could she know about the existence of the illusory space? I want to enter the 9-star constellation. Yi Qingtang made her choice. Though the effects of the 10-star constellation were more tempting, Yi Qingtang did not want to be too greedy. That's a good choice. It seemed like the radiant object was laughing. As Yi Qingtang made her choice, the rest of the constellations disappeared in the darkness, and only the 9-star constellation was left. Walk into the constellation, and you'll enter that world, the radiant object said. Yi Qingtang did not know what world the radiant object was referring to. However, it would definitely be extraordinary as it could help her increase her strength exponentially. Yi Qingtang carried the little white tiger and jumped towards the illusory 9-star constellation. Her figure soon disappeared from the constellations as if she had never existed. Yi Qingtang sensed a peculiar feeling. It seemed like she was soaked in cold spring water. She felt that she started to lose her consciousness slowly. Bolts of light flashed across her eyes swiftly, and she could not capture any information. But soon, the image in front of Yi Qingtang changed. The shadows dispersed, and mountains and rivers suddenly appeared. She was awakened by the sound of bird tweets. Chapter 1349 Constellations 3 Inch This is the world in the 9-star constellation. Yi Qingtang raised her eyes and sized up the place. However, the moment she finished her words, she could feel the intense and intoxicating spirit energy in her surroundings. The spirit energy on the central mainland was more intense than the first domain. However, it was totally incomparable with the spirit energy here. Yi Qingtang felt that she could absorb all the spirit energy into her body through simply breathing. After a few breaths, Yi Qingtang reached the first heaven of the arcane supremacy. Yi Qingtang was stuck at the 10th heaven of Yin-Yang perfected Lord level for a very long time and did not find the right opportunity to level up. However, she entered the higher stage with just a few breaths. Now, Yi Qingtang totally believed the radiant object's words. In such a place that was filled with intense spirit energy, it was not impossible to reach the heavenly venerate stage in 4 to 5 days. Yi Qingtang was curious at the same time. If the spirit energy in the 9-star constellation was so intense, what kind of spirit energy was in the 10-star constellation? Before Yi Qingtang could pull herself out of the joy and surprise, a long-tailed bird flapped its wings and flew across her from the forest. It was supposed to be a very normal thing. However, as the bird flew past Yi Qingtang, she was thrown out by the wings. An insurmountable force hit Yi Qingtang's chest directly. Heavenly venerate stage, Yi Qingtang tried to stabilize herself as she stared unbelievably at the bird that flew past her. She could sense it clearly just now that the aura from the bird's wings was a heavenly venerate's force. Was this some kind of joke? Yi Qingtang was dumbfounded. What kind of place was this? How was it possible that a normal bird possessed the power of a heavenly venerate? Before Yi Qingtang could figure out what was going on, an ancient melody came from the sky. She looked upwards towards the origin of the sound but, in midair, a few shadows could be seen vaguely among the dark clouds. Though it was really far apart, Yi Qingtang could still sense the aura clearly. The strength of the aura made Yi Qingtang's brain buzz, and the ancient melody seemed to chop her heart and soul into pieces. As the sound moved closer, noises arose from the forest. A few wild animals rushed out of the woods suddenly. They seemed to be chased by the ancient melody and escaped in the opposite direction as they roared. The direction they were trying to escape was exactly where Yi Qingtang was at. Yi Qingtang tried to bear with the effect from the ancient melody. Her eyes were full of surprise from the animals running towards her. All of them possessed the power of heavenly venerates. What the fuck? What kind of place is this? How come all the normal animals are at the heavenly venerate stage? The little white tiger was really shocked. Yi Qingtang's expression darkened immediately. If she was knocked by any of the animals, she could be killed right away. What kind of cultivation place was this? Any creature here could kill her instantly. "1350 traps." When Yi Qingtang turned back immediately as the animals approached. However, she noticed that there were halos floating behind her, and they were about to disappear. Is this the exit? The exit was about to disappear. Yi Qingtang carried the little white tiger and dashed towards the exit instantly. She did not care whether she could level up immediately. She might not even live for a day here based on her current strength. The scene in front of her was covered by layers of glints. Yi Qingtang felt the world spinning, and she was back into the constellations on the next second. The surroundings with intense spirit energy disappeared along with the heavenly venerate creatures. You came out fast. The radiant object asked as it saw Yi Qingtang running back from the 9-star constellation. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath secretly, and her back was filled with cold sweat. She started to curse the radiant object in her heart. Suitable for her. The place was extraordinary to level up. However, based on Yi Qingtang's current ability, she could not even survive inside. Everything inside was at the heavenly venerate stage. Even an insect could be at least at the arcane supremacy stage. Yi Qingtang was only at the first heaven of the arcane supremacy. She might not even know how she was killed inside. You were saying that the 9-star constellation was suitable for me? Yi Qingtang stared at the radiant object, and she could not equate the god of nature to kindness anymore. This was just the 9-star constellation. If she entered the 10-star one just now, Yi Qingtang guessed that she could never return then. Isn't it suitable for you? See, you already have a breakthrough after a few breaths. I did not lie to you. The radiant object did not sense anything wrong. Yi Qingtang twitched her lips slightly. Yes, she thought. She leveled up in a few breaths of time. If she stayed for a few more seconds, she could be crushed by the heavenly venerate creatures. Yeah, it's suitable. It was full of heavenly venerate creatures. Even a bird could kill me just by flapping its wings, Yi Qingtang said. Oh. The radiant object was silent for a while. I assume that the world inside the 9-star constellation has changed and is different from what I know. Though these constellations have a fixed star level, the illusory worlds inside are not fixed. They can transform into another world anytime. I did not expect that you would enter that world. The radiant object's voice sounded very sincere. It seemed like it totally did not notice that it almost killed Yi Qingtang. How would she believe it again? Yi Qingtang did not doubt the god of nature's consciousness. However, she was misled into such a trap, and she would not believe it anymore. She did not know whether the worlds inside these constellations would change. She definitely did not believe that the god of nature could not sense the world inside the constellation. The whole mystic realm is formed by its soul. How could it now know about that? What the hell? Yi Qingtang was very glad that she did not enter the 10-star constellation out of greed. If not. Ha! Yi Qingtang realized that the consciousness of the god of nature was quite evil. It told her that she could enter and leave the world inside the constellation freely. However, as she came back, the door was about to disappear. (1351) Traps 2. She was too naive as she did not expect such traps from the god of the nature. Since you're not very comfortable with that, I suggest you can enter the 8-star constellation for cultivation. It is easier than the 9-star one. The radiant object offered a nice suggestion. Yi Qingtang did not buy it anymore. She ignored the central constellations and looked towards the 1-star constellation at the end. She could level up exponentially inside high star level worlds, but they were of high danger. She might get herself killed just due to her greed. She should just follow the order and cultivate step by step. I want to go to the 1-star constellation, Yi Qingtang said. She should be humbler before she understood everything here. She did not want to die here before she could even level up. The radiant object did not seem to be pleased by Yi Qingtang's choice. It remained silent for a long while before it sighed. It is really a waste for you to enter the 1-star constellation based on your potential. How about, I want to enter the 1-star constellation. Yi Qingtang now understood the god of nature's way of thinking. She would choose the one that it was not happy about. The radiant object did not seem to meet anyone so stubborn before. Alright, I will not say anything since it's your own choice. But let me tell you something, the world inside the 1-star constellation is not that great, it said after a long silence. It was still trying to influence Yi Qingtang's choice. Yi Qingtang did not bother to reply. She carried the little white tiger and walked into the 1-star constellation that floated in front of her. Her view was covered by glints again. Yi Qingtang felt a sense of peace after the world spun in front of her. She opened her eyes, but she was stunned by her surroundings. She was in a poor little room. There was only a bed and a lame wooden table. The floor was filled with dirt. She raised her eyes and noticed that the door was locked. It seemed that there were a few young men chattering outside softly. This is the world of the 1-star constellation. Yi Qingtang had a strange feeling. But she realized that the spirit energy here was more intense than the central mainland. It was incomparable with the one inside the 9-star constellation, but it was still very intense. What kind of place is this? It's covered by a rotten smell. The little white tiger lied on Yi Qingtang's arm and stared at the mess on the floor. There was a lot of food left on the floor, and all of it was rotten and gave out a pungent smell. Yi Qingtang looked around for the exit of the constellation. The exit was at the corner of the room and dispersing slowly. She should have some time left before it totally disappeared. As Yi Qingtang checked her surroundings, she could hear the discussion from the young men outside. If the eldest young lady still doesn't behave herself, I think master is tired of her. I heard that the master has ordered someone to clean the outer house. He will ask the eldest young lady to move in soon. It's good for her to move over. She's crazy every day, and we still have to send her food here. The room stinks. I don't want to be near here at all. Chapter 1352 Traps 3 Yi Qingtang was confused as she heard the discussions from the people outside. She walked towards the door and peeped through it to take a look outside. She tried to figure out what those servant-looking people were talking about. Yi Qingtang was more careful this time. She observed the aura on these few people secretly, trying to know their strength. However, she was stunned as those servants had no spirit energy at all. That shouldn't be the case. The spirit energy here is more intense than the central mainland. Unless they are born with no talent for cultivation, they should have some cultivation. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. A radiant ball appeared behind her as she was confused with the situation. Yi Qingtang's eyes were filled with surprise as she stared at the radiant ball. What was going on? How come the soul of the god of nature also followed her here? I said, this world is boring. The radiant object murmured unpleasantly. As it finished its words, the radiant object started to twist in front of Yi Qingtang. It transformed into a 3 or 4-year-old child after a few seconds and landed on the floor. The child's entire body was surrounded by halos. Though he appeared to be very innocent, his hair was totally white. This is really too filthy. I really don't even want to come to the world of the 1-star constellation. The little child scanned through everything in disgust. His expression darkened as he saw the rotten food he was stepping on. He immediately floated into midair. God of nature. Yi Qingtang stared at the corny child and asked carefully. The god of nature then raised his head and took a quick glance at Yi Qingtang. The disgust on his face was immediately replaced by profoundness. Lucky explorer, do not need to be surprised by what you see here. I am the god of nature, and I can turn into anything I want. What a surprise. Yi Qingtang stared at the profound child and could not help but want to give him a kick. Why are you here? Asked Yi Qingtang. Of course, I'm here to give you your mission, the god of nature said as if it was a matter of fact. Yi Qingtang was confused. Oh, I forgot to tell you earlier on. After you enter the world of any constellation, you need to finish the mission I give to you before you can leave the world. Of course, after you complete the mission, I will give you nebula points based on the difficulty of the mission. You can use the points to exchange for equivalent rewards in my star pavilion, the god of nature said. Yi Qingtang was stunned by the amount of information. Wait, Yi Qingtang stopped the god of nature's rattling. You said that I need to complete your mission in order to leave this world? Yi Qingtang stared at the god of nature and doubted what she just heard. Yes. The god of nature nodded. But that's not what you said earlier. You said that I can enter and leave any world of the constellation freely. Yi Qingtang opened her eyes wide. Yes, I said that before. The god of nature did not find anything wrong. He lifted his hand and pointed towards the entrance of the constellation that had almost faded completely. Before the entrance disappears, you can enter and leave freely. After the god of nature finished his words, the illusory entrance of the constellation totally disappeared. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.